Okay. Hi there, everyone. I am sitting here in New York City late at night, and on the other side of this little Google chat is Simon Phillips and Andrew Lloyd Webber, who are sitting in Tokyo. You're in Tokyo, correct?
I think we're in
That's
Tokyo.
true. Last time we looked.
Yes, it looks like out the window.
And what is it, lunchtime? You're on a lunch break?
Sort of getting towards lunch, but I've just come in from London, so I really haven't a clue what time it is at all, anywhere.
Eat anything at any time.
So you are you are rehearsing the Tokyo Japanese premiere of Love Never Dies, correct?
That's right, yeah.
I'm insanely jealous that I am not in that town with you because I love this musical. I absolutely love this musical. I'm just going to gush for a minute here. I actually met you, Simon, at the Priscilla Queen of the Desert opening on Broadway. You directed Priscilla on Broadway and in London and everywhere, Australia. And I sort of accosted you because I had just found out that you were directing Love Never Dies, and I sort of pulled you aside to make sure that you were going to do this right. And you have done it right, because I've only seen your production in a movie theater, you know, when the broadcast of the Australian production, but it is a glorious production, and that is now the production that we are giving to Japan, correct?
Yes, that's right. It's actually thrilling for it to get another outing in a theater, and it's going into a slightly smaller theater in Japan, and they've kind of been remanaged slightly to make it. It was a massive production in Australia. They actually wouldn't know that it was a little smaller, but it is a little smaller here in Japan, but it's looking just as beautiful. We're very happy.
Now, is it's at the Nissay Theatre, correct? Is that where Phantom played, Andrew?
Originally, yes, many years ago. That was it. I mean, it's very exciting for me, I must say, because this is the first time I've seen it in this version, and it really is the most extraordinary saga, really, because I thought that the Australian production was everything that I hoped the piece could be, and but it was massive. I mean, massive. I mean, and we all had to agree that it wasn't something that really could be done really feasibly, just due to the sheer size of it. And so to get it down to a form where it can now go to other countries and other places is what this is all about. So this is a little bit like really the prototype, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
To see that whether we can now take it around the world, and we've already basically we have already done the production in Vienna now, and the next port of call is Hamburg, and it's very exciting because it's funny how just one production can change people's view of a show.
Well, and really great, as you say, like you've seen it on DVD. That DVD was a really smart move and a godsend to us because it's given people a glimpse, and it's very beautifully produced, so it's given people a glimpse of the production internationally, and that's sparked more interest in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember you telling me that you thought it was Andrew's best score. And
yeah,
to me, it's very close. There's aspects of Love, and there's Love Never Dies. I love both. I love both. But Love Never Dies is a gorgeous score.
I think that the exciting thing for us is really it has been that, I must say I did think when it opened in London, I thought, this is not really working for some reason, and just extraordinary thing. Another production can take exactly the same material. I mean, actually we did have
we did change it.
But basically the same material, and it gave it a completely new life.
Yeah. It feels very coherent, and in fact, the changes that Andrew's made to the structure of the score have I think really improved the kind of dramatic arc of the music and consequently the drama. But the music feels like it kicks off really in a wonderful way. And a couple of places in it probably where there were musical elements that, having seen it in one production, Andrew felt that they were unnecessary. They got trimmed out, and now I think more than ever, I mean, I always thought it was his best score. It was just most consistently beautiful score. Mm-hmm. It obviously doesn't have that kind of famous hook or whatever, but really, it's the most consistently beautiful score, and any fat's been trimmed off the bone now so that it feels like one holistic piece. It's very beautiful.
I think also it's going to. I haven't seen it all the way through yet, but I'll see it tonight.
Famous last words.
But I think we are now pretty much at the point where if this works, then we'll have one more go through to see whether there are any areas we want to still tighten up or change. But I think at that point, then hopefully we'll be ready to take it. Well, hopefully it'd be great to get it into America now.
Yeah, before the end of this call, I will beg you to bring this show to Broadway. But we are getting to that point. But for now, so the show is in Japanese, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you like?
I just love hearing it in a different language. It's something so kind of, and the nature of the piece, the high drama of the piece, it just seems to suit the idiom here. I'm really loving it.
Yeah. Andrew, do you like hearing your score sung in other languages? Is that what's that like for you?
It depends really on which language. I mean, I have to say for my music, I mean, to hear it in one of the Romance languages, the Spanish or Italian, is wonderful.
Yes.
So, I mean, in Japanese, of course, it takes longer to say.
Oh, it's we've got our favourite moment at the moment in the show that there's a lyric in one of the numbers where Meg sings, "Is your life a little humdrum? Is your wife a little glum?" And I was confirming the translation, and I said, how has this been translated into Japanese? Dull, light, scary wife. It takes all those syllables to say it.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So you have to. But it's interesting. I mean, Japan has been over the years. I'm thinking right back to Jesus Christ Superstar. I mean, over 40 years ago, Japan has always been a major place for musicals, and they embraced of all of the countries outside of Britain and America. Japan was, I would say, one of the very first to truly embrace Western musicals. And they have an enormous tradition here. I mean, there's been Japanese companies and Japanese schools working on music theatre from way before I started. And that's a while ago. And so you come here. There is a big pool of performers. I mean, it's as big as you find in London or in New York. And therefore, working here, it can be very exciting indeed, because you just have access to real talent. It's very different, for example, to China, where they don't yet have that. They have the appetite for musicals now, but they don't actually have the homegrown talent. But Japan is full of it.
Oh, the talent is astonishing, actually, and the combination of talents that you get in a show like this, like major actors and stars from very different areas, have all come together in Love Never Dies, and the result's quite thrilling.
What is it like communicating with the cast? I mean, that's just kind of a silly question, but it must have taken forever, translations.
I mean, that's the other great system they have. There's a real career to be made for being a theatre translator, because so much English language product comes into Japan, and the creative teams come with it, and you're just trailed by a translator who is supposedly representing everything you say faithfully.
Now, Andrew, I was at the Love Never Dies opening in 2010 in London. I was there on opening night, and then I immediately bought a ticket and went back and saw it like 2 nights later, because I loved it, as I said. What's your takeaway from the London run? I mean, obviously now I know that the show sort of changed even during the London run. When you look back on it now, what was that whole production for you?
Well, I think, if I put it another way, I think what the Australian production achieved was something which is very rare, really, in musicals. It's that thing of where the actual physical production marries what the score what actually achieves what the score wanted. The original Hal Prince production of Phantom was extraordinary in that way. There's something rather wonderful about this, in that it reminds me a little bit of Maria Bjornsson, who designed the original Phantom. It reminds her of her working with Gabriella Talasova, is European, and she's got the sort of European sensibility about it in a funny way. And what it has, for me, and I can say that's very rare that I've seen it, is it's got a sense of style and unity in the actual production design that when it happens, it is rare. I mean, I remember, the original Hal Prince of Vita had that.
Yeah.
You know, and again, obviously Phantom had that. But I genuinely believe that this production of Love Never Dies matches the music entirely.
I felt we had to kind of pay. I think we were under great kind of duty in approaching it to pay certain tributes to the Phantom of the Opera design. In fact, because it was such an iconic design, and this piece had spawned from that combination of talents making such a complete piece of theatre. And so I think we really knew that the pressure was on to recreate that symbiosis that Andrew's talking about. And the score, you know, we had the score there to respond to. In fact, we did this when I was doing Priscilla in New York, and Gabriella came across for a week, and I would finish my day's rehearsal and then go to her hotel room and be there till 3 in the morning. And that is, in that week, is where the essence of this particular design scheme was developed.
But it's seamless. That's what I like.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it is absolutely of one piece. I mean, sometimes you can get with the design, you can get moments where, particularly when you've got many different locations, like with that, this, you get a moment where sometimes it can perhaps veer from one style to another style, and there's a bit of a jolt. But with this, you absolutely don't. But I always remember one thing that Hal Prince said to me many, many years ago when I did a musical in London called Jeeves, which did not work. And I remember him writing to me and saying, "Don't be discouraged about this one. He would frankly bank the score and use it for something else." But I didn't. But I do remember one thing he said to me then, which I remembered all through my theatre career, is he said, "You can't listen to music if you can't look at it." If you think about it, what Hal was saying, the wonderful old showman that he was, is that the production design has to be right. And if you think about it over the years, I mean, I've been to see operas that I love and hated the evening because somebody had done something with it, or updated it, or put it in another context. And then you go see exactly that same piece of music a month later in another production, and you say it's the best evening I've ever had.
I had a really interesting experience, actually, because there was without mentioning names, there was a production of a straight play that's also an opera in Australia, and the design was done for the straight play, and it was one of the most brilliant designs I'd ever seen. And the same team were then asked to direct and design the opera, and they went, "Well, we've got this great design, it's all fab, let's just use it." Didn't work at all. It wasn't actually a musical design, you know, the design was at odds with what the music was doing, so it was fine for this play, but not for the opera. I didn't find that very interesting in the end, so I hope you found that. But
it definitely looks like it's there's a great visual language for Coney Island, and it looks like in the production too. And that was such, capturing the spirit of that was obviously really important.
Well, I thought it was an ingenious stroke in this story. Like, how do you find something to equal or top the opulence of an opera house if you're writing a sequel? You know, that was such a magnificent and evocative setting for the original. And I thought Coney Island was a really great idea, and it just allowed us to feed into it. It was virtually the first thing I said to Gabriella. This is the world that we're sitting in, and we have to honor it and make it feel great.
And the one thing about it, I think the design again is that in one sense it's a fantasy, because I mean none of us really remember what Coney Island really was like. I mean, all we can see are the bits of news.
The sad thing that it is now.
Yes, there's not much left. But I mean, what it must have been, or what Luna Park or something like that must have been in its day, must be truly, absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah. One of the things we decided, actually, when we started working on this new version, is that in the original version, there were a couple of scenes where you kind of came up for air and you were on the beach, daytime scenes. And when we started talking about it, we just decided that it would be better if once you were in that world, you never left it. Like you were immersed in the kind of the dark and shimmering and glorious nighttime.
That's right. We never go.
Yeah, we never
go outside.
Never go. What are the real people doing out on the beach today? We just lost that stuff.
Yes, I'm not terribly interested.
Andrew, you're writing with this show. You're writing for beloved characters. I mean, you really made people fall in love with these characters in Phantom of the Opera, and taking their story was so. Everyone has their opinion of what happens to a character past the first story. Was that sort of? I mean, I guess you also have dealt with other famous characters like Jesus and Norma Desmond, so you've done a little bit. But Phantom and Christine and Raoul, and I mean, these are definitely characters that people really sort of hold dear. Did you feel that when people react to the story?
Well, yes. I mean, obviously, Christine, for me, is one of the most intriguing characters that I've ever really created, because I really do feel for the girl in that, and I suppose that's one of the reasons why, in the end, I decided, well, without revealing too much about the ending, that that she had to die.
Wait. I was going to talk about this, but I don't want to put this little sign up for people, because if you haven't seen Love Never Dies, we might be revealing some things.
I know. I mean, but
at the end of Love Never Dies, we do.
She's a fascinating character to me, because actually she's very strong. That's the point. And I always remember a review in New York of the original production when where the critic could not have got the whole thing more wrong, because you say, well, of course, the thing about Sarah Brightman in it is that she couldn't look scared, in the Bronx or something, and the whole point about it is that Christine is not scared. I know in the original, the old black and white movie, the Lon Chaney movie, she was, of course, and it was all stock horror and everything. The whole point about the whole thing is that Christine is obsessed by it.
Yes, yeah.
And it is a true love story, and that's the point of it. That, I think, probably is the difference between what I did and what the other versions of it. But the whole point is that it's about a love that can never really be. And of course, in Love Never Dies, we're able to take it much, much further, because of course, when she sees him again after all that time, you've got to know. That for me, that is what I thought last night. Seeing it again, that. Goodness me, that's powerful. And it is the ultimate statement of love that can never happen.
Yeah, and I do think it's really interesting. I mean, it gets complicated because these characters have become locked in people's hearts in a certain way. It's actually really fascinating to go, over 10 years, people change immensely. They've gone through vast life stories, like half of the characters are caught at a very young age in Phantom of the Opera, and the difference between someone at 21 and someone at 31 is really quite extreme, especially if they go through a few hard knocks. I don't know, there was definitely controversy with audiences about whether they wanted to know that these people might have changed in 10 years' time, or whether they just said, we would rather lock these people off in our hearts as indelible images of what they were. But actually, in any other genre or kind of art form, you'd have thought that that's a really fascinating thing to do. What's happened?
Well, that's what excited me. I mean, I guess over the years, in this 25 years plus now since the original Phantom, several storylines were suggested to me about doing a sequel to it, and I always rather said no. But when this particular version of it was suggested to me, there were a couple of things which were really, really intriguing to me. I mean, what actually did happen to Madame Giry and May, and the thought that they'd gone to New York and they'd gone with him. Just thought, well, that really does give it a completely different tone. And again, the idea of Coney Island to me was very exciting. Yeah. I mean, because we are in a world of freaks, and Paul Wontorek, of course, and he'd be creating his own.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I actually thought that the character development was extremely clever. I mean, I actually loved the whole story of Meg, sort of the immigrant experience. You know, using that character to sort of display that. So I love it. I love it. But one thing I want to talk about is I heard that there's maybe some discussion about the ending of the show. Is that true?
Well, we're thinking about it in the sense that since the DVD came out, I mean, there's been we've had a tremendous amount of feedback, and I have to say I'm agnostic. I don't know about it. I mean, it could work equally well in a different way, but it's just a question of, for me, I mean, I've seen it. I've just literally seen it in Vienna a few weeks ago, and I mean, the impact of the end was so powerful there. But one half of me says, well, why change it? The other half of me says, well, there's no harm in trying it and seeing what happens.
We've just
Till you get an audience in front of it, you don't know.
It's really actually a cultural thing, we feel. I mean, artistically, yes, we have no problem with the current ending. It makes complete coherent artistic sense for us, and in many contexts, it just couldn't be better. But it is a cultural issue, and it's quite an extreme ending. And the reason that we've been thinking about it is if now there is new life to the show, and it's going to go to, hopefully, going to go to other countries, and particularly America, we're just interested in whether the ending is just for one particular culture, you know, a little bit too much of a shock to the system.
I think that's it. I mean, we are quite happy with it exactly as it is. But there is this question, and again, without revealing too much, but the thing is that people worry about what happens to the child, and that's the feedback we've really had. Is, I mean, what happens to this boy? Well, if we did change the ending, we could make it much more comfortable for people.
Yes, that's the bottom line.
The bottom line. I mean,
go home after a great night in the theatre, secure in the knowledge that Gustav was going to be okay.
Going to be very, very happy. But personally, I think he's going to be quite happy.
Yes, but Andrew thinks he's picked the winning card.
But I have to admit, there are
those stick in the mud like the entire population of your country.
I must say that it's American producers who basically been saying this. I mean, the interest in doing it now again is huge. So we have to listen to it. I mean, and I really don't know. I really don't know. I almost would like to just do an evening where we do two different endings and see what happens. But I think, I mean, for me, I'm quite happy with it as it is. But I think we have to listen.
And it'll be an interesting experiment, I think. To think about it in a different way.
So basically, what you're saying basically is that you might kill the Phantom.
We might, but on the other hand, we might not.
Yeah.
Well, we've got to get on to rehearsal. So
could you please cut straight to your "this is the best show I've ever seen" and please bring it to New York? Could you just do that spiel and then we have to go?
Oh, that's interesting.
Have a look at this.
Yeah, we could do it in like 2 minutes.
Yeah. This is what's just around there.
Production design.
That's hilarious. Oh no, I've ruined the shot. Sorry.
So you're giving me hope that maybe I will get to see Love Never Dies on the New York stage. What do you think? What percent chance of this happening?
Well, I think it's pretty high.
Yeah.
Providing all goes well tonight.
Yes, that's right. Ask us tomorrow.
I think it's pretty high because the production of this is key. I mean, and it's getting it to a level and a scale that it is feasible. I mean, we couldn't have taken the Australian production to America, as it simply, I don't think it would have fitted. This is another thing. I mean, you know, we were playing in a very, very big theatre with a very big stage.
We designed it. We designed it to try and make something of a theatre that was too big for it. So, although there's still quite a lot of stuff backstage to get on, it's now in a more feasible.
Yes, I mean, one has to remember it's something that as a bit of a trap that sometimes one falls into in London. Of course, in London we have theatres which have got deeper stages than most Broadway houses, and there are very few Broadway houses that have the kind of depth that we used to. So what we hope to do here is to create a production design that can fit more easily into the kind of theatres that we'd be likely to go to.
Well, don't forget Sierra Boggess and Ramin Karimloo are big deals on Broadway. We do love them too.
Oh, with Sierra, we absolutely love Sierra. Yes, we adore Sierra. Nice to think that she will be Christine fairly soon.
That's true. with a Japanese phantom.
Yes, well, no, but Sierra is, I think, she just is extraordinary. She really, most incredible girl. She's got such a sense of humour. That's the thing about her. I mean, you could really throw anything at her. And I don't know. She's just the best. I think the best Christine, certainly.
Well, so it's tomorrow there already, and you have your first show tonight, right?
That's right.
We're off now. He's got to go because we've got to start rehearsing. Yes. I've got my orchestra at 3, which is nice.
Yeah, we're racing to the finishing post.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your rehearsal schedule to talk about Love Never Dies, one of my favorite topics. I can't wait to see you guys at the New York opening of the show, and best of luck in Tokyo.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Okay. Thanks,
Paul. See you.